Hello everyone, welcome to Sahitya Academy's Webline Literature series. Today's program is in English language. Today we are going to discuss e-literature, or what's called electronic literature. Literature is something that as we all grew up with, or probably few generations, what it means to be something written or typed. But it's a kind of an expression. Even written literature is a kind of an expression. You're right from the beginning, from the time when the human beings started settling down in communities, or even much before that, from the time of what do you call as rock paintings, or through dance, and then when the written word palm leaves, copper plates, then happened Gutenberg. So none of us can brush aside Gutenberg. There's a huge revolution in any kind of a tool that's available with after fire. Maybe I would say after fire, invention of fire. This Gutenberg was something huge. Then we had a Barnes and Noble's pocket series, and then we had a computer arrival of television and rapidly advancing technology. We had computers arriving, laptop. Now we have mobile publishing. So obviously the way in which the writing is not only written, literature is written, but also how it is consumed, that is also bound to change. That's inevitable. So to discuss this and much more on this topic, we have three very distinguished friends with us. First is Professor Nabanita Sengupta, and she is Assistant Professor of English at Sassoon College. She has a PhD degree, and then she's a translator, poet, creative writer, with number of publications to her credit. And welcome to the show, Professor Nabanita.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and next is Professor Rajni Singh, and she's Associate Professor of English and Associate Dean, Media and Branding at the Indian Institute of Technology, Dhanbad. And she is a multi-talented, multifaceted personality. She is on the board of National Commission for Women for Delhi. And then she is listed as one of the top 10 knowledge producers in India. Wow. Well, that's something there, and her interest is in gender studies, and she also, like Professor Nabanita, she has got a huge number of publications to credit to make it much more shorter. The introduction, I'm just cutting short such lengthy bios of all these friends. And the next is Tania Chakravertty. Tania Chakravertty is currently Dean Students Welfare, Diamond Harbour University, and her PhD is on gender representations in the fiction of Ernest Hemingway. Oh, that's something which is very interesting. And she visited US to participate in an academic group project called Strengthening and Widening Scope of American Studies, the US Experience, as part of prestigious International Visitor Leadership Program. And she is also Executive Council, Joint Secretary, Executive Council of Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library, and the first coordinator and steering committee member of American Literature and Culture Interest Group, a cultural group aided by US Consulate General in Kolkata. So welcome to the show, Professor Tania Chakravertty.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and share my thoughts with the fellow panelists, very distinguished ones.
Yeah. So, and we will start with Professor Nabanita, and of course, one by one, all of you will have 2 minutes each to say what is e-literature.
Thank you for the opportunity. And e-literature is, I think, one of the most fascinating areas of fascinating and upcoming areas of literature that we can talk of today. Now, e-literature, I would say, is something that is born digital, which of course excludes the print literature that has been digitized. So, because by digitally born, I would mean something that is created in computer because of its particular features, and it's meant to be read and experienced. And I'm deliberately using the word experience because e-literature is often more than just reading in computer or any such electronic devices. Now, according to the Electronic Literature Organization, or the ELO, they say that it is e-literature is something that works with an important literary aspect that takes advantages of the capabilities and context provided by the standalone or network computer. So basically then e-literature would be something that is born out of the what we call today as computational creativity or creative computation. And because it is created within such a networked and programmed area, it is informed by various other genres like animations, computer games, films, digital arts, graphic design, digital visual culture, and now even this augmented reality. In fact, I would like to show a few, as we proceed with the lecture, we'll show a few e-literatures later. And that, I think, is something which is one of the very important things of e-literature is its fluidity, the flux that we find it in. It's constantly changing. We cannot pin down upon a particular meaning. So that, I would think, is what e-literature to me means.
Okay.
More would come up.
Okay. Professor Rajni Singh?
Nabanita explained it so well. Actually, before coming to the word e-literature, I would rather focus on the word literature. If we look at literature right from the fireside folktales to Netflix drama, literary writings have really impacted the society in all ages. And it has the potential to charm us, to heal us, to widen our imagination, and to also, refine our moral and social sensibility. Particularly if we see the evolution, I mean, literature in all ages has kept evolving in terms of its style and form. And if we look at the evolution of literature right from the beginning, as Sir was pointing out, that right from the cave paintings to the etchings on the stone, to the through the print, through the print media, to the digital media, as we are, situated in the digital age now. I mean, there's been a tremendous transformation in the entire, literature and literary production. So literature and literary production has never come to a standstill. It keeps going, it keeps, the continuum is there. And since in the human mind, we keep building, little fantasies. These stories are always there. We keep building these stories in our mind. So we just need, the right tools, and perhaps the technologies of the age of that particular time, they play a pivotal role in shaping the literary aesthetics, of that period. So I see e-literature as specifically a product of all the digital changes that we have seen in the last, 40 to 50 years. This is one. And as Nabanita rightly pointed out, e-literature is basically digitally produced literature, which is limited to the digital space, and one has to approach it on the digital screen itself. It cannot be printed, it cannot be reproduced, it cannot be copied or pasted or regenerated. So.
Okay. Professor Tania?
Yeah, after very good introductions and definitions, I would begin by saying that the ELO, or the Electronic Literature Organization, has come up with a simple definition, as Nabanita has already pointed out. And it is supplemented by a list of forms and threads of practice. And among them is that novels that take the form of emails, SMS messages, or blogs. So I will bring the audience's attention to a piece of news that appeared in 2019. On 1st February 2019, it was announced that an asylum seeker who wrote a book using WhatsApp while in an Australian detention center on an island in the Pacific won one of the nation's most prestigious literary prizes. The man in question was Behrooz Boochani, and he wrote this book called No Friend But the Mountains, Writing from Manus Prison. This got the 2019 Victorian Prize for Literature. Written in Farsi, a language of Iran, from which Boochani is a refugee, it was translated by Omid Tofigian, the recipient of Boochani's WhatsApp messages. And this is what Boochani told the BBC: WhatsApp is like my office. I did not write on paper because at that time the guards each week or each month would attack our room and search our property. I was worried I might lose my writing, so it was better for me to write it and send it out. So why am I beginning with this piece of news that appeared in The Guardian. This proves that the history of electronic literature is not only relevant in this age, but also it is necessary. So this has been claimed by digital humanities scholars. I could manage to look at a few of them. Sven Arsev, Alice Bell, Catherine Hales, George Lando, Lev Manovich, Marie Ryan. So yes, a wide variety of computational literary practices, as my fellow panelists pointed out. And the yellow says that it works with important literary aspects that take advantage of the capabilities and context provided by the standalone or networked computer. So the computer or the network context, that remains essential. And moreover, I would say that e-literature is very interesting, especially for this age, because it has a transdisciplinarity and most importantly, what this generation is so fond of, the possibility of interactive reaction and also, participation. So that would be my introduction.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. I mean, okay, there are wide range of topics that touched in these brief introductions. Okay, well, of course, we need to go a little deeper into that. But before that, very important point that was raised is digitally produced. Okay, is that the only criteria by which it is distinguished from a print literature? Well, because Professor Rajni Singh said that cannot be printed by, well, in my view, that's, I think, in a way that both Professor Nabanita was telling, and then even what Professor Tania was, that example that she was citing, that also was printed as a book. Okay, is it only the medium, the change of medium, or is it entirely something new altogether? It's a different genre or the different category of expression here in the evolution of human creativity. So we will start with Professor Nabanita.
That's a very interesting point to make. And I would like to just turn around what you said from the opposite direction and say that Catherine Hales, in one of the most influential books that she wrote, she says that literature in 21st century is entirely computational. And she goes on to say that even the print literature that we have is computational. Digitality makes an important mark there. So both the literary and the digitality comes together when we are talking about digital literature. But then, of course, when you are saying that whether just this presenting it in the different media is the only criteria or not, criteria or not, more than that, I would say what it is doing is it is making literature and intersectionality of various other media. There's music, there's graphics, there's often there are performances which are made a part of this.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, I get where you're going. No, I'm sorry for interrupting. I just want to skip Professor. I want to stop you, skip Professor Rajni Singh, and go to Tania directly because she took up this WhatsApp. My question is it only the medium has changed? That's my question.
Should I?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
No, Professor Tania. I'm just keeping you and going to Professor Tania.
Okay, no. If you look at the phases of development, you see the first phase began in the 1970s, if you think of e-literature. So this was the time of electronic theory construction too. And this time it was referred to only as computer literature. Because if I'm not mistaken, 1971 was the year when Project Gutenberg first came up with the e-book. So 71 to 94, these 23 years, the movement was slow and steady. The only thing that we had was e-books. And then what happened in 94? In 94 came the World Wide Web. and that revolutionized everything. This is what Jill Walker Redberg says: with the advent of the web, new authoring and distribution channels opened up, and the hub naturally lost its dominance. What was the hub? The software program called Story Space. So not just computers, but you see, now you have Micromedia, which is now Adobe, and you also have Dreamweaver, and you also have the basic HTML.
Yeah.
So in the second phase, I personally feel that most of the changes that Nabanita was talking about, most of the changes actually happened in the second phase, where you could, weigh and balance both. You could have the ebook, which could be printed. I mean, pages could be printed out of an ebook. But at the same time, in 1997, Arset published Cybertext, a perspective on all forms of textuality, she said. So if you have all kinds of textuality, that includes everything. So it becomes an inclusive whole.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, Professor Rajni Singh, sorry, we will come back to you now. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when I said that, the literature produced in the digital space is e-literature, I was trying to be very specific about e-literature in terms of its form. Because you see, anything which is on the digital platform cannot be put into the category of e-literature. Because e-literature is a very, very distinct form of, it's a different genre in itself. And right from its, the way it is produced, the kind of softwares that are involved into producing the text, okay? Like, say, for example, the hypertext, fiction produced by Michael Joyce, Afternoon a Story, which came out in 1987. So that was produced on www, and it used softwares like StorySpace and HyperCard. And if we look at the text, the story over there, on the margin you have the threads. So one has to click onto the thread, and as one clicks onto the thread, the page will pop up. So that particular page will pop up. So the reading patterns, I mean, the text has been devised in such a way that one has to understand how it is coded. So it is more to do with the coding part. So when I say e-literature here, I'm very, very specific and clear about that literature which is produced with the aid of computational, softwares and technologies. It is highly different sort of aesthetics. So Tania was talking about this Gutenberg project, and there are many projects which are taken up by the universities in the US and even in Europe, which are in the process of digitizing, multiple text. Okay, the text of the 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, the classics. So I mean, that is another stream within that. So that basically, I think this e-literature is somewhat very different, and it has to be interpreted in the light that, it is a different literary form in itself. So it cannot be clubbed and it cannot be cluttered or put together in the category of the general term called e-literature. I mean, the digital literature as such, the literature which is produced in the digital space.
Okay, there is difference between digital book and electronic. Why I cut short Professor Nabanita? She was making a very interesting point, and both of you, both Professor Tania and Professor Rajni, you developed very beautifully what Professor Nabanita was referring to. So, now for all the benefit of all the people who are watching this video, so Professor Nabanita, is it possible for you to show anything that will make it even?
In fact, I would like to show exactly what Professor Rajni has been talking about.
Yes.
And I'll just show the way this digital literature is forming.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started sharing my screen.
Yeah.
And this is what is. See, this is what is called a every weather poem.
Yeah.
And this is, he says, this is by J.R. Carpenter, and it's a 2019 production. So, see, this is the content page. This is the content and information page. And he says that this is a picture of wind, a weather poem for phones, and he specifies a weather poem for phones. And
Yeah.
there is this map, and there are all these temperature zones marked, and it goes on like this. And when we move, the poems show a different kind of a setting, and the poems itself under each month, as you see, they also keep on changing their forms. See, here you can see in November, gales reported, etc. Then you suddenly it is oak moon. December, you have melted snow. Then again, cold wind from the west. So this is one thing. Another thing, it's a very recent thing, and it is done by a few people I'm familiar with. And this is a very recent journal, EKLF journal, where this young poet, Chakravertty, what she's doing is she's presenting a hypertext review. And in the hypertext review, what she does is there are a number of hyperlinks. So wherever you click, you get another added information to the text. So I just wanted to show two very different kinds of e-literature. One is where the main narrative is augmented and supplemented with other hyperlinks, which then go on to talk about here, drama here between. So in between the pages infuse the quietest of lives of melodrama. Another narrative.
I think you have to close this. We are not seeing what you do. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So could you see the text?
No, we could not get. So that's there was it got stuck.
We saw an MS Word.
Yeah, that's all. It got stuck. No problem. I understood. We all understood, but then it got stuck somewhere. So that's why I asked you to close the page. Okay.
Oh, this should have been shared. I think. Yeah. I think now if I share,
it will come up. Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yeah. Correct.
Right. So this is what he is doing. So she is doing. These are all hypertext. So these hypertext can within the narrative, it's showing a different kind of narrative. There's this main narrative here, and with the main narrative, there is also the added text. And the other one that I was showing is more interesting. See, this is a map of the world at the top. This is a 2019 production. And he says that this is an every weather poem for phones. And he specifies it's for phones. And here you see there is this month and there are text in blue along with the text here along with the poems. There are other texts in blue. So this November says first time. Then if I click, it would change to rain by night. Then December has a little snow. And again, if it's clicked, it changes to something else. This is what I was basically trying to show. Sorry for that.
No problem. Yeah, because now we will come to this. Okay, we will develop it further, and then we'll go to this, and then because Professor Tania made a very interesting. Of course, probably everybody thinks that they understand it, but she made a very interesting observation that one of the characteristics of hallmark is that the connection, the fusion of horizon between the author and reader gets merged in digital world. Okay, she said, well, I always think that the publisher is dead. I'm sorry. I hope Bharti will forgive me. Okay, it is not. It's not a death of author. It is a death of a publisher who is dead. Publisher is dead. Yes. With the invention of blog, completely it's gone. So, Professor Tania, that on the one hand, it brings the author and reader close together. Okay, but when you are referring to something like WhatsApp or something like Instagram poetry, okay, now self-publication. Earlier, there is a kind of it was created for a purpose, some kind of a medium, some kind of editorship was present. Today, we are seeing wide range of in many languages across the world. We have a literature, novels, short stories. Well, we have a flash fiction. Okay, that's a great flash fiction we have. What that flash fiction, I should not use the expletives because it's official program, but what we are seeing is unedited. There is absolutely, as if people are completely unhinged. So where do you see? I mean, is it a kind of a negative side, flip side of the whole e-literature?
Depends on how you look at it, considering the fluidity of it all. I began by talking about the cybertext. The concept of the cybertext, this came up in 1997. So if you think of the first 23 years, and then if you think of the transition from the second phase to the third, this concept of the cybertext, this was replaced by what was referred to by Hales as a technotext. So once again, from the cybertext, when you move to the technotext, the focus is more on the reader than the author. So once again, you have intermediation, and as you rightly said, I mean, I would agree with you that yes, the focus shifts entirely from the publisher or the writer to the one who's handling it. So the second phase was incorporating new categories. One was definitely kinesthetic.
Yeah.
Very close to the kinesthetic comes proprioceptive. So again, related to sensory, stimuli, etc. But the most important, I think, is the haptic one. I mean, we are so used to reading everything on tablets or mobiles. So this again would show a shift from the second to the third phase, which is also very fluid. Because I personally think that if you think of the year 2007 was the year in which the iPhone was launched. Before that, there was Android, and before that, there was, the BlackBerry. But again, first with Android, then with BlackBerry, then with the coming of the iPhone in 2007, this begins an entirely new phase in the history of new media and e-literature, as Rajni was also saying. It has to be a totally different category. So you have the development of mobile devices, which affect, among others, social media. So with a rise in, the use of social media, first there was Orkut, then came Facebook, and then, of course, you have, in the third phase, you have crowd programming, and you have also Twitter. Here, I mean, something that was unimaginable. With Twitter, if you're a fan of Amitabh Bachchan, you can write directly to him. So, this interactive, the reader becomes more of a performative participant. So, yes, it becomes multimodal, multi-layered, and performative. So, I would agree with Rajni that, yes, this is an entirely different, subcategory altogether.
Yeah, thank you. So that's a very interesting point. So, Professor Rajni, you began by talking about what is literature itself. I mean, we have to, if we start, that question is there from the time of Socrates, given the amount of, even discounting the amount of imagination of Plato. So it was been questioned, defined, redefined, challenged like that. Well, in the post Foucault and Derrida world, indeterminate, we can't even specifically determine, especially constantly evolving things. But since you are in the field of education, you are in IIT, so Nabanita talked about, she mentioned augmented reality. So how do you see changes in that educational literature changing completely, Professor Rajni? It becomes completely electronic, not even digitized, completely electronic now with the possibility of other things?
Yes, actually, if you look at barring the fields in humanities, particularly, if you look at this, augmented reality, definitely it has brought in a lot of changes and transformation in the fields of engineering, in the sciences and engineering. And
I just want to mention, not science, forget engineering, technology, science.
Right.
Well, recently on Twitter, maybe 3 months ago, there was a teacher in a corporation school in Kerala, and she is using augmented reality, sitting at home to teach dinosaurs, biology, anything. Like, for example, people are creating, even in like history, civics, all these things. So we have gone further. I mean, that's why I'm asking, is it going to be changed forever? My question is that, from education, school to college, university.
I think, yes, I mean, it has already begun. It has already begun, and the practitioners, the teachers, they have already started using all these technologies, the augmented reality and the stuff. But then again, the kind of like transformation that we are, like expecting or looking up to, that perhaps may take little more time, because if you look at specifically when we talk about when we talk about the Indian society and the kind of what do you call this, a demographic divide, okay, and the divide of the digital divide that we find within the country. So it's really, I mean, not possible for everybody to reach out and to have an access to the internet and actually to approach and to like participate in those sessions. So definitely, I mean, on one hand we are experimenting with our teaching techniques and patterns. We are bringing a lot of reforms into it, but at the same time, whether these reforms are we able to take it out, I mean, take it across to the masses, that is again another sort of challenge. So I yes, of course, I mean, this augmented reality will definitely ease out the process of understanding the way, I mean, it is a complete breakthrough from a conventional chalk and talk classboard, this
I think she maybe, yeah. Yeah, okay, let her come back. Maybe something is wrong with her line. Yeah, so because, two things, Professor Nabanita, two things. One is Professor Tania. She took us in a very nostalgic. She talked about Orkut. Who can forget Orkut? Yeah, okay, there's a time. And then Professor Rajni talked about this kind of in the classroom changing. Well, okay, it is slow, little slow. It started in 2015 in Japan. What I'm referring to here is, yeah, integrated. Who would not? Like, I don't know whether any of you remember, maybe you're all young, I don't know. So there was a movie called Jeans, which is from Tamil. It was produced into Telugu, Hindi, and all, Aishwarya Rai. And okay, right. There was a song in which when that person is talking, the hero will sing about, to celebrate our love, even the grave, we will have Shelley. And immediately both the hero and heroine will be dancing in Shelley's grave.
Right.
Yeah, like, for example, equality, they will be walking in the wall of China. So what I'm trying to say is that this is what I was referring to when I was talking to Professor Rajni. There's this integrated technology, a physical printed book, I mean, digital divide will be there. So how to stop it? So the physically printed book, we will have audio. It's a printed book. It will have audio. It will have visual, and then augmented. Especially they tried with a huge success for elementary school.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then somebody said Nakamura is a crack. He doesn't he doesn't recognize any of his translation. But Japanese, on the other hand, are the guys who always welcome everything into the world. So for them, they're like, for example, they talk about Shakespeare, so no need for the teacher. This way, this e-literature is going to be a huge game changer in the field of education. Am I correct?
Yes, of course. It's going to be a major change. We can, in fact, see move in that direction already, because most of the private schools these days, what they do is they have a 3D, they have a screen wherein they, along with their chalk and chalk method, they are projecting whatever they are teaching, they are projecting a digital, visual and oral representation of that on screen. Now, as Professor Rajni mentioned, yes, probably the actual augmented reality, where we are getting a three-dimensional feel of it, might not have been incorporated in all the schools of our country because of certain challenges that we all are aware of. But then I was just going through, I saw one of the videos where one teacher of a particular, he's also teaching a class, and he takes his device to the charts on the behind the classroom on a board, and he clicks on, say, a heart, the picture of a heart, which is a two-dimensional picture of a heart, and there is it's connected. So that heart starts pumping. So he shows the student how the heart is working, or in the West, I was again going through when I saw one of these teachers who was using literature, augmented reality in a literature class, where she is making her students visualize a part of a fiction. So these are the ways in which, of course, augmented reality is being used, and it's further, its space is further going to be increased to include more and more people under, or more and more institutions under this umbrella, as and when technology becomes more available, cheaper, and probably accessible easily too.
Okay, thank you. So, Professor Tania, I mean, okay, very interesting. You just came up to, if I'm not wrong, you just beautifully how it evolved up to 2013. You have come. Okay, so now how do you mean? Where do you see that it's all going to be there? Like, it looked like a eternal wait. Like they say, 2007 or 8, that very famous TEDx lecture of Pranav Mistry happened. So 2009. So 11 years since, we are all having a watch, mobile, yet nothing is happening in the world. So one is education is one, and another, even in corporate world, this is bound to change. Like, there is some, people now, we have voice synthesizers, speech to the synchronization has happened, and no need for you to have a laptop or even tablet. You just speak in a mobile phone, it gets printed there. Okay. Where do you see it all going? And like literature itself, I mean, where do you think it is going from here?
See, from the 70s to the 90s, it was a slow and steady move. From the 90s onwards, the move has been extremely rapid, extremely fast, and there have been too many changes. I mean, personally, I could say that if you are, say, looking for a book, I mean, yes, you can definitely go to a shop and browse through a physical book. But nowadays, not just, children, what do we do? As you said, you put it up on Amazon. When we say browse through Amazon, or when people look at, popular authors, not, authors who are part of the canon, but those who are very popular. For example, Devdutt Patnaik is very popular with people in their 20s to the 40s. So if you think of a person like Devdutt Patnaik, the moment you click on that hyperlink, you will not just find sections of the book, you will also find, animated images, you will also find sketches, all of these popping up. So this, this idea that, a screen will pop up the moment you touch on it, I think that sort of increases that excitement, which is related to buying a new book. So yes, as Nabanita very rightly pointed out, definitely in schools, I mean, this is one generation who was so used to the visual. I mean, ours was the television generation, I remember. Yes, television, and then came cable television, and people thought that, yes, around the clock we will all be glued to the screen. Now we are not glued to big screens. We are glued to these small screens on tabs and on iPads and on the mobile phones. So yes, this pop-up feature, I think, the haptic, that I suppose is most important. So when you browse for a book, critical or otherwise, be it popular fiction or be it critical material, if I can click on a hyperlink and if I can actually read portions, I think it increases, that excitement in purchasing. Okay. That again, I would say has a very, what should I say, consumerist aspect too. Because yes, sometimes when we are browsing, consumerism at its best or worst, you may say, you sometimes buy books which you never thought you would.
Okay, so like you said, okay, you presented that, okay, the kids, I mean, okay, they were glued to television and boomers, and then after boomers, there are some falses like me.
I mean, no, if you can hold things in your hand, you know,
correct.
That aspect is.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling. So there are people like me who are fossils. We have to go to the library and get this. Why I'm referring to that is that it's a very important aspect which I'm touching upon, because the information is in everybody's fingertips. Okay, the information also that turns them in. Okay, it also feeds libido again, which is in fingertips. I mean, everything is changing. You see that why I'm saying, when we say everything is changing, so Professor Nabanita, the way in which the people are going to you just
I know.
Welcome back.
So
Welcome back. I re-admitted you. Yes, you welcome back. So Professor Nabanita, you just shared a specific screen for about poetry. Okay. And then I just briefly talked about flash fiction and all that. Okay, where do you see authors? I mean, how do you see, like, Professor Tania was just referring to the reader becoming a performative. He becomes a player, actual player. Okay. So in these conditions, I mean, where do you see, I mean, how do you see the literature is being performed? Like, for example, again, Professor Tania very correctly touched upon some very key aspect of it, which many of us do not even bother to just focus on. Sound. Okay. Today in Indian languages, apart from English, when you try to Google something, Tamil, because they all produce so many sounds mapped into the symbols, then integrated them, and then it came next languages, and Bengali is on the way up. I'm sure that they will catch up with Tamil in few years' time, but Hindi has got a time. I mean, I don't know, whatever the reasons, it has got more. Probably it'll take some time, a decade or so, before they can become this. So in this, given all this, so where do you see how do you visualize authors creating their books or their work? I should say work. After so much of discussion, I should say work, not book.
Right. So author creating the work has definitely changed, primarily because I would like to focus on one thing which Professor Tania focused on from the reader's perspective. That is, she talked about the excitement, which I would interpret as also the immediacy. Yeah. So an author creates, immediately presents it to the reader. Readers are there to immediately react to it and interact directly without any intervention with the author. Even if we are not talking of text produced in the social media, if we are talking of proper published textual works, there too, almost every author you will see has a blog, has a page where the readers can go and present their comments. Then there are these blogs and the various kinds of other platforms from where there is a direct interaction. Now, all this direct interaction has a quality of immediacy to it. So the author is constantly in interaction with the reader. Now, that can be in a way advantageous to the author, as the author is able to judge the pulse of the reader. But at the same time, it might also lead to the problem of catering to what the reader wants, which probably then may lead us to these kind of very which we may not classify always as literature, coming up on say Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. I'm not saying that good work is not being published in these areas. There are quite a number of established poets who did start their literary career by writing on Facebook or on Instagram. But what I'm trying to say is that there is also a flip side to it. In fact, Patrick Jagoda, professor of Chicago University, he had very beautifully pointed out this fact that Facebook, coming of Facebook, completely changes this this author-reader relationship and changed the world of publishing altogether. So that is, I think, one aspect.
Okay, so I mean, Professor Rajni, in your absence, we talked about, we just carried it a little forward, education version, the role of technology in how reader and also reader becoming important now, also in how the authors will create their works. Okay, so one quick word from you, Professor Rajni, that this, for example, the electronic books, okay, as it is, electronic books, at the moment, our paradigms are shaped by the technologies. Not only now, for thousands of years, the available technology it shapes our paradigms. Just like Einstein said, matter bends space. It gives a shape. Shape comes out of matter bending a space. Same way that do you see any other technology apart from visual? Do you see anything like today slowly we have Amazon Audible. Okay, audiobooks, earlier we all used to think it's for children. But like somebody said, Samskara is available both Kannada and English. I laughed. But he's selling like hot cake. So maybe more languages will come. Somebody said they are translating Manto and Premchand into Audible. So what do you think? Apart from visual representation, do you see audio taking over this?
Definitely, because there are a lot of projects which are taken up by different universities abroad and even within the country as well. So definitely the audio will. Could you just go back to the question?
No, I mean any other technology apart from visual. Visual is last 50 years. So apart from this, I mean one is audio that we are just getting to see the emergence of audibles. Any other technology do you see? Like yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
No, at the moment, I cannot, make any guesses as such because I don't see anything, apart from this, coming up. Of course, this augmented reality is one, but then what is going to be the next? That's something something time will only, decide and tell us. So again, if we talk of augmented reality, I think this is a very recent development. So how the technology integrates with the literary devices and how it creates a new kind of effective literary pieces. That is something which really we have to wait and we have to watch.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I don't know something.
Yeah, there was a time when the sound which ruled both the author and the reader, okay, or whoever consumes that sound which created, everything was oral in nature. Just the way in which it's crazy things are happening in non-English world, like Kenyan, and then in Afrikaner, in German, in French, and now slowly we are starting up in India. China has gone far ahead. It's almost most of the books are available in audio. Okay, so do you see both Professor Tania and Professor Nabanita? Do you see somewhere along the line, even this typing, the electronically producing will stop and we'll go back to our old thousands of years ago? There was Only audio was there, sound was there, because from the sound came the world. Yeah. Both of you, please.
In the beginning was the word.
Yeah, was the word, yes.
Right. No, if in the beginning was the word, you can't really do away with the word, I would say.
Yeah.
You can't just do it. But as I was trying to say that e-literature is actually incorporating many things together, but it does not mean that the word will be done away with altogether. And one interesting one interesting thing that I would like to share, since you're talking about, the death of the publisher, etc.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Rola Barthes, related to this tension when it comes to the hypertext community and interactive fiction. You see, in 1988, there was a hypertext fiction workshop.
Yeah.
Again, 88.
Yeah.
So this was Rob Swigart, and the author John McDade reports that the participants of the workshop were very keen to prove this is not a game.
Yeah, I remember
So
that.
again, when it comes to bloggers or when it comes to fiction being associated with the audiobook, whether or not it's good literature, whether or not it's true literature, I think for another quarter century or so, people will not really look at bloggers or people who publish e-fiction or e-poets as writers of serious literature, because it takes a lot of time to remove prejudices.
Oh, you say
But,
that, well, I was under the impression that people are talking all over the world that blogging is dead.
No, I wouldn't say so.
People are saying all over the world anyway. So, Nabanita, Professor Nabanita, yeah, please.
Yes, I do agree with what Tania has been talking about, that it takes a lot of time to do away with the prejudices. At the same time, I also agree with you when you say that the blogger is dead, because what has happened in the process, I think, is we have jumped. The blogging has been the crawling stage, like from baby. Absolutely. When it starts moving, when it crawls. So the blogging has been the crawling stage, and while blogging, people have realized that there are a lot many things that you can do with using the same kind of technology in the same space, and not just stay restricted to blogging. You now have this blog, B-L-O-G.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And then there is this only voice, what you're talking about, the podcast, where you just have the sound. And so I think blogging is probably, yes, it's not that much of a phrase anymore. But at the same time, e-literature is also not that kind of a phrase anymore, because people are scared of technology. At some level, we all have certain inhibitions where technology is concerned, number one. And number two, technology is still not that widely accessible. Mm-hmm. And the feel that we have been used to for centuries of holding a book and reading it is going to really take some time to go away. But we are catching up. We do find contemporary poets taking a lot to the various kinds of media. As I just shared with you one of our fellow poets' work, where they are, and that's a magazine where they are doing all kinds of experimental things with literature. And then there is also, I've shown you, I can show if it's time, a small video journal that they are talking about. So, and this video journal, can I show it for
you have 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay, I won't even take 1 minute. I'll just take a few seconds where I just want to show this. Where they are bringing in a performance that is reading poetry and listening to poetry, everything together, and they are actually trying to bring together people from various parts of the world. I don't know why it is taking that kind of time, but what I'm trying to say is basically that yes, there are various experimentations, and we do find quite established authors also taking to this mode, which is why I just wanted to show this, because here we have one of the very eminent authors of Sri Lanka who's presenting his poetry in first in Tamil, then in English, and then we. This is, I don't know whether you can see it or not. The reception is bad. So
yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
blurred,
Shantan,
but
yeah,
visible.
Yes.
Shantan is there, yeah.
yes, so this is what they call, as you can see, video magazine. It's written here. So, and this is a Danish poet. He speaks first in Danish, then he goes to English. So, what I'm trying to talk about, I'll just stop it. Yeah, what I'm trying to talk about then is that there are experimentations even by reputed authors who are not so-called the young contemporary poets or authors.
Yeah.
So probably we will be moving a bit away from it, or probably will be coexisting happily in a
okay, if I understand, and I just want to put that last question to Professor Rajni Singh, and okay, from what I understand is that people stopped podcasts and moved to video, because some better technology with a better reach, better appeal was available. Not because inherently podcast was bad or something like that, it's got disadvantages or something. Podcast in itself is a kind of an improvement, but maybe they took it up. Is it say the same way that people may ditch this kind of electronic literature and do something else?
I think with time, electronic literature will evolve more and more and will incorporate more techniques and technologies into it. Basically, it will blend in, the audio, the visual, the hyper textual modes, and at the same time, with the addition of infographics and other things, it's going to keep, updating itself more and more, and so that, because eventually the target is the audience, and something which appeals to the audience, it should exhilarate the audience. So perhaps, they'll keep experimenting with it. I don't think that e-literature is going to die, since we are already now glued to technology. We cannot do away with it. We have to be with it, along with it, and literary productions will take place with the aid of these devices, with the softwares. It has to continue that way, and there'll be readers, definitely there'll be readers, but then, as Nabanita was talking about, readers for blogs, and readers for different, digital platforms. The idea is that, again, who are the readers, what kind of, taste they have, how we are, building that community of readership. So that again, there's this again, a different sort of, ball game involved into it, forming of, groups and circles. So it's a very intact one. So if you talk about a very established, form of writing, or let us call it, high literature, if at all we have to go by that. So definitely it invites, wider readership. There's a whole range of, audience, readers across, okay, and the text, withstands with time. But, these literature, actually, the ones which we have been talking about for the last, 35, 40 minutes, I think, it's there, it's just there on certain platforms, but then again, awaiting for the readers to approach. So that is, there's a huge, divide between the two kinds of, literature, though it claims to be, again, an emergent form. But still, I believe that it will continue to remain as an emergent form, because it has a lot of, like, the role of technology is much more. Too much of the technology, the role of technology is too much into devising this sort of, literature. So definitely, technology will influence and impact the text that is being created.
Okay. But well, okay. So. Thank God, I have to say thanks, but then we are far went beyond our time. So I wanted to take that up. Actually, the field is like that.
Can I just have a quick word?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you see, you have readerly text, you have writerly text, but here we have a physical performative experience.
Yes.
So I think we should continue looking at literature more as a negotiation than communication.
Yeah.
So the negotiation will continue somehow. And the communication process, I think, will keep on changing. So that is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, you're right. But actually, maybe another 100 questions are there. The field is not like that. The topic is like that. And on the one hand, all of us seem to be knowing exactly. Probably we have a grip. At the same time, we do not know anything. The field, because it's very nature of the field itself is evolving. But actually, I wanted to touch upon doing away with all mediums. No mobile phones, nothing, straight from brain to paper. Well, I don't know. The viewers, well, please Google and see. And of course, participants also, brain to computer, straight. And of course, they are in the prototype of brain to paper in the sense that printed. So you can see that, Google that and see the literature will be produced devoid alone in a probably like some Andaman cell, somebody is sitting, or detention center in Canberra, some fellow is using mobile phone to create through WhatsApp, or somebody in, I read Greece, and that lady was stuck for away, actually some rubble was there, so she had only, in the 6 hours, she created Instagram, poetry, whatever. So even our next step, I think literature, production and consumption will be directly from the brain. So thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Nabanita. Thank you, Professor Tania. Thank you, Professor Rajni. And for all those viewers, it's a great to have all of you. It's a fantastic, lively discussion. And for those who are watching from around the world, please continue to watch Sahitya Academy programs in all 24 languages. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.